Hello everybody. So this is going to be a quick video on how to rip the game and get your Unity set up. I will be skipping through some of the processes, mainly the loading processes. You're not going to miss anything, but this is specifically how to rip Valheim. So first things first, I've cleared out my Valheim folder, so I'm going to re-verify all the files. I'm going to right click, go into properties, local files, and then verify integrity of the game files. So what this does is installs a fresh version of Valheim, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that here in a minute. But basically, let it guaranteed install a fresh version of Valheim, wipe out your Valheim folder if you already have one with a bunch of mods maybe, or something of that nature, just so you can have a clean one. And I'll show you more or less when you browse, right click and browse local files, it'll take you into wherever your default install is for Valheim. So this needs to be clean. This needs to be the basic game. So what I do and what I'm about to show you is I actually rename. So this one is kind of my pre-project setup with all of my mods and whatever references that I need for things. Typically is fairly blank. The only thing that it has is Bard Sounds, BepInEx, and some other mods in here. So default Valheim install. This is going to be our friend. We are going to rip the game by pulling it from here. I do recommend duplicating this folder, similar to how I have my other one here, and keeping a clean version of the existing game just in a different spot. You can literally just Control C and Control V after clicking on that folder and duplicate it. And for my sake, I am going to do that. So I'm going to Control C, Control V, and have a copy. And then typically I'll name this the clean version if I can spell. So Valheim clean, and then I have a default Valheim. So when I say your default Valheim install in any of my tutorials, what I typically mean is this path right here. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be your main drive, which most of the time is C, program files, Steam, Steam apps, common, and then Valheim. So we're going to need this folder here to be able to rip the game. So how do we rip the game? We download a program called Asset Ripper. You can find that at github.com/assetripper/assetripper. So the version that I know guaranteed works happens to be the version that's showing right here is 1.9.9. There is 2 versions past that. This is a pre-release, and so is this. 2.0 I heard had some issues, and they very quickly, within 3 days, turned around a new update. But you actually want to download 1.9.9. And in my previous tutorials, if you're familiar with those, ripping the game has been kind of intensive. 1.9.9 has a lot of glorious quality of life changes that's going to make this super fast and super easy for you. So what you guys need to do is download the zip file based on your operating system. You do not need the source code or the tarz. You just need the GUI. For me, I usually download the Win64. I do already have it installed, but you download it, you extract it, and for the sake of argument, I will download, and as you can see, I have one already existing. I'm going to show you what's in here. The main thing that you need is the assetripper.exe. This is where you're going to launch it. I have mine pinned. It's actually down here on my taskbar that you guys can't see. But I have mine pinned. I will be opening my version of the 1.9.9. But download this, extract it, get it set up, put it in a folder that you like. I typically call mine like Valheim modding or something of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this here. I'm going to launch my version of Asset Ripper GUI, and as you can see, that's 1.9.9 in the background. I do not want to upgrade to 2.0.1 because I have not tested it. So as you can see, here's my version here. And that folder, hopefully you guys didn't close it, but go back to your default install of Valheim. This is our bread and potatoes. This is where all of our references for our code are going to be, and this is where all of the stuff that we're going to need overall is going to be, okay? So recommend having a clean default Valheim install and then using R2modman or something like that to keep this clean, or having some sort of folder that you can consistently reference for all of your references, okay? So Asset Ripper GUI is already loaded. We have it here. in order to rip the game, this folder is, as I mentioned, our bread and potatoes. We are going to click on the Valheim and actually drag and drop it over here. But there is a setting in 1.9.9 that I've used multiple times, and it seems to work beautifully. No more NG script stuff if you're from my previous tutorials. But just this bottom left setting, change it to DLL export without renaming. Okay? So we are going to take that Valheim folder, which I can see it highlighted back here, so I'm going to grab it, and then just drop it in. All right? So once this loads up, it's going to ask you, hey, do you want to export it? Where do you want to export it? Put it wherever you want. Okay, this is going to be a fairly big, sizable Unity project is what actually gets exported out of this, so I do recommend putting it somewhere that you have space. Okay, so we're going to click on export, and we're going to click export all files. So most of the time, I have my D drive that has all of my stuff on it. I do have a Valheim modding folder. I tend to drop all of my asset rips here, specifically for Valheim, of course. So I'm going to, for sake of argument, create a new folder, and we're going to say Valheim Tut, and I'm going to rip it into this folder. So I'm going to select it. And this does take a little bit of time, so I'm going to spare you the pain and pause and wait. All right, so once you've waited patiently and your eyes hopefully haven't bled at this point, maybe you've grabbed a snack, who knows? So export is complete. We are actually going to close out of Asset Ripper. We do not need that anymore. And I'm going to jump to where I installed that. So the benefit of using 1.9.9 is it really helps us out on exporting the game. But there's a few things that I would recommend setting up before you actually get into Unity, okay? So Valheim modding, Valheim Tut, if you notice there's a Valheim folder, but inside of it in 1.9.9, they now create this exported project folder. I tend to grab everything that's here and I move it up into the Valheim folder here. You're wondering potentially why I do that. It's so in Unity, inside of the Explorer, or the hub as they call it, we are not going to have a project that says exported project. So whatever this particular folder is that holds the project is what's actually going to be the name. So in this case, it's going to be Valheim. I do tend to rename this and I call it, I'll call this one Valheim Tut. Right? So Valheim Tut, either one, however you want to start naming this. You could even move it up another folder if you really want to. Up to you. So what I do at this point is I actually duplicate this. And the reason why is in order to set up a clean project, you do still need all of their project settings and all that stuff, but you might not need all of their prefabs. Maybe you just want their settings to guarantee that it works with the game, and you don't want your Unity to take 10 years to load. So copy and paste this. I'd recommend having it in here just as a backup, potentially. Maybe you messed up or something of that nature. You'll have a full asset rip in the background. So copy and paste that, create a new folder, bottom line. All right, and once that's done, we're going to have two different folders here. We have the Valheim Tut and the Valheim Tut copy. So the copy itself is what I'll show you in a bit. But basically, you need to go and download Unity Hub. You can just go out and look at Unity Hub and download for Unity Pro today, or you could download from the archive and download Unity. So the version that Valheim currently uses is 4.3, I believe. Let me actually confirm that. 4.31 F1, I think. So you do have to go to the archive to download that. That is an older Unity version. That is not the latest Unity version. Keep that in mind. So here's the issue with the exported project thing that I mentioned. The name of your project or the final one that contains the project is what's going to pop up over here. So if you want a few things that actually make a little bit more sense, at quick glance, I would do it here. So Unity Hub looks like this. You go out, you download it, you can find it on that Unity page, and then you need to download the 4.31 F1 like I mentioned here. It is 2019 version. Make sure you get that. Your Unity version must match the game that you are modding. At least in Valheim's case, I don't know. This is my first game that I've actually modded, so if 9 times out of 10 that's going to be exactly what you want. You can work on older versions, but you might be missing out on some features. It's best to target the exact game version. So What we're going to do is we have this Valheim tut that we've created here, and we have the copy. Um, and I've actually already messed up. So the copy itself has all of the project settings and whatnot, but it doesn't have the additionals. So you'll actually have to reset this up if you messed up like I did, right? So I am going to set up a project. I'm going to go and click open. And this happens to already point to that folder because that's where I just was. I'm going to open up Valheim Tut and then click Valheim Tut. So we moved all of our stuff up, so this should be the actual name that gets pulled in, as we can see here. Once this loads, Asset Ripper 1.9.9 really helps us out and actually fixes a lot of our references. We used to have to use ng script. We used to have to go into the file explorer and change scripts and mess around with things. We actually don't need to do that anymore. So when you first open up the project itself, it will take a while. I'm, again, going to spare you the pain, and I'll wait until this loads up and we actually get into Unity. All right. Well, hopefully you're not bored yet. Here we are, roughly 10 minutes later. Once the project gets ready, loads, sets things up, we are kind of pretty much done. You know, we've ripped Valheim. We've done everything. There is a water boil loop error that you're going to see at the bottom here. For the most part, you can ignore that. It's a constant .wave file error that comes in. We do have a fix in the Odin Plus Discord if you guys are a part of that you can download if you choose to use the water boiling sound. I believe it's linked to the hot tub. So there's a few things that we need to do in Unity. I'll walk you through it. I'll explain exactly why, and I'll tell you why that we don't actually use this project and more as a reference. So first things first, you can have the asset store and get things set up, but for the most part, this project isn't where you're going to want to work. This project is going to be the project where you pull things from, you export things from. All right, so first things first, go into Edit, Project Settings. Here is where we're going to configure things, and this is why I said I messed up earlier, is because if we configure it now and then we duplicate it, then we don't have to do it again in the other project. So I will skip ahead, and I'll skip that in when I set it up in the next one, but just keep that in mind. You can either go ahead and recopy this one now, however you want to do it. So make sure you're in the Player tab here. There's going to be some shader issues, and I'll actually show you that here in just a second. We're going to jump to prefab instance, and then you can hit control and scroll wheel to actually see pictures if you want. So you'll see that all your trees and all this stuff kind of look weird. You feel like you should be able to see a tree here, right? This comes from the project settings. So make sure you're in player. I typically switch this to linear for more rich colors. Makes it a little bit closer to what it actually looks like when you bring it into the game. So that is a recommended switch. You don't have to do anything special besides just change it and let it do its thing. So a lot of people use the Vulkan graphics API when they play this game. So in order to provide compatibility for that, there is an auto graphics API for Windows that is checked. We actually want to uncheck that. And then we're going to click the plus over here and click Vulkan. Once again, another load bar. You're going to see a ton of these. So once that's done, calculates hashes, it does the thing with the water boil loop, we're good. Do the same thing for Linux. Uncheck it. Vulkan happens to already be here. You don't have to do anything special. And then, as you can see, when we go down to API compatibility level, switch this to .NET 4.0. This allows you to use a little bit more up-to-date scripts and actually fixes some of the issues overall. I don't fully know the reason why. It's just something that we figured out. So jump up to the graphics tab here. All of the weird trees and all that stuff that you're seeing is because Valheim uses custom shaders, custom written shaders that we actually don't have access to until we check for those at runtime. So in order for Unity to look okay and for us to actually pull those into the game and they look relatively okay, switch this to the built-in shader. So now make sure when you rip the game that you have all the additionals. So everything that you really need for physics. Make sure that this is all checked and filled out. If it's not, then there was a problem in the rip. You do need this for a lot of different checks in the game. It checks a lot of spheres and physical ray casts and all this stuff. This kind of determines that. Same thing with the physics 2D. and all of their settings that they have here, their gizmo settings, all of that good stuff. Okay, so just kind of verify that this looks kind of filled out and it doesn't look not configured for the most part. So we're closing this out. We are technically done in this project. 1.9.9 made the asset rip super simple. We already have all of our reference scripts like plant, ZNet view, all of the things attached to the prefab were previously, and the reason why I chose a tree is because in a previous video, I told you need to download ng script recovery and you need to do all this crazy stuff in order to actually bring it in and set things up. So here's where I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to reduplicate this folder for myself and spare you that pain. So I'm going to close out this Unity project. This is where we're going to get our references, so make sure that you don't touch really anything in here. You can work from this project if you wish. You can just, right-click on Assets, create a new folder, and then just start working from here. That way you don't have to do all this exporting and all this. But there is a benefit to exporting it into the other project. The benefit is you can rename all the shaders, you can set them all up, and you can have one, a project that loads faster, and two, more compressed assets for smaller asset bundles, smaller mods, and smaller DLLs, which allows, of course, for better load time. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to spare you the pain of me copying that folder, but I am going to jump right back to this folder. I'm actually going to delete my copy and set some things up. So I'm going to spare you the pain. Be back in a minute. Alright guys, welcome back. So this Valheim Tut copy, we are going to now open this. We're going to have two. You don't have 25 projects or 26 projects, however many I have. We're going to open, point it back to the same thing, and we're going to go right to the tutorial copy. This, my bad, I forgot. I did not change the internals, so I did not move things around, which is why this is going to start screaming at me. So I need to go to the Valheim Tut. So Valheim Tut copy, Valheim copy, right? So click this and open. So now I have two Valheim Tuts, but luckily I can see the folder path here. Keep in mind, if you wanted it to be named different, just change that internal folder, okay? So for me, I know that both of these are my Tut projects. I'm going to delete them after this, but you will have to just kind of sit here again. But luckily, since you've already built the project and the other one, this should be much, much faster, as you can see. So all of the stuff that we set up in the project settings, we can go and confirm and make sure that those actually transferred. So linear, Vulkan, right? Graphics, built-in shader. We're kind of A-okay. So you have a fully working project off of Asset Ripper 1.9.9 that makes things awesome. But there is a caveat. There's a few things that you're going to click on that are just going to throw an error, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. Okay? So let me see if I can find one. Usually it's trees, usually it's like random things that have like a LOD issue, and sometimes like scrolling through will get it. Let me see. I think the armor stands actually have this issue. Let me make sure. Yeah, there it is. Null reference, not instance, not set to an instance of an object. It's going to be a thing that says a speed tree material fixer, right? All this means is there's something messed up with the LOD group, aka the loading, right? So if we zoom out, eventually it'll say cold, right? But this one's not saying cold. We want to know why. Hey, why doesn't it say cold, right? What cold means is it unloads. So you get too far away from it, it unloads. Saves memory, saves space. That's what this error is saying. It's saying that it can't do that. Main reason why is if you click on the prefab, you double click it, open it, get it kind of in a view like I have here. You're going to click, and we are going to scroll down to find the actual mesh render later. And we have the shader, we have all this. So this particular spear, as we can see, doesn't even have a LOD group. Or at least I don't see one. So more or less what that means is that this will always be in memory. So if it doesn't have one, like my special case here, lucky me, right? Add one. And I recommend doing that. Add one. Make it more performant. Help the Valheim devs out, right? So you can type in LOD, add component LOD. We're going to say LOD group. In this case, typically you can set all these up however you want. So as you select on each camera and we scroll through, we'll actually see when and how it's actually going to load. So we can go here and you're going to drag the mesh layer, the one that has the mesh filter and stuff on it, and pull it in. You can also drag other things, like the trail and all of this, but no, use only existing children. Typically, you can drag just the whole prefab, however you want. You can say yes to that if you want to. Mess around with it, have fun. But for the main purpose is when you set things up and you get things rolling, I don't recommend that you actually have all of your prefabs inside of this project. But when you start to mess with them and you import them, make sure they do have LOD groups. This saves on memory space. So like right as I move to this next one that doesn't have a renderer, you can see it disappears. That's basically what that means. Okay. So I added one here. Normally in this copy project, you want this to be as clean as possible. You want this to be your stuff, not Valheim stuff. So delete everything except for packages. So I clicked and then I held down shift and I clicked again. I do not want to delete this packages over here, but I will delete everything else. All right. And then create a folder, call it custom items, call it my assets, call it whatever you want. Split it out, separate it, however you want to do it. But now you're wondering, well, why would I delete everything that I just ripped? That's what this other project is for. This other project is going to be your reference project. This is going to be things that you want to export and things that you want to mess with, things that you want to bring into the game. That way you have a Unity project that only has what you've messed with, things that you want and things that you want to modify, change, however. So if we jump back in here, we'll see that that's still taken 10 years. So for now, we'll jump to this project. Let's say I wanted a build piece, which is what I'm going to go ahead and set up and configure and look for. You'll find a build piece. You can search for them, scroll through however you want. I'm going to use like a roof piece potentially. So I'm going to type in like a dark roof. You know what? Screw it. We'll do dark wood gate, right? So you're going to right click this. And you say export package. Make sure it includes dependencies. And if you notice, it's going to include everything that this package or this prefab references. All of the materials, all of the meshes, all of the stuffs. Sometimes, as you can see, this isn't just related to the door. We have audio clips, characters, hi, Hugin appear, things like that. You don't need everything. Only take out what you need. The materials, play around with it. You can always re-export this later. But for me, I am going to, I need all of this stuff. I don't need any of the Hugin stuff, but I am going to export it simply for argument and speed. So I'm going to export, and I'm going to jump to my other project, which is Valheim Tut and Valheim Copy. But I'm going to create in that project first a folder. I'm going to do an underscore so it always stays at the top. Custom items. And open this up. So now when this thing is asking me, if we jump back here, I'm going to save this in Valheim Tut, assets, custom item. And then I'm going to call it, what was it? Darkwood gate. And export that. So that's going to give me everything that this gate uses. And since our other project is set up exactly like this one, the scripts and everything should just automatically work. Okay. So I will see you guys in the next video on actually how to create this asset and maneuver with it. But for now, you guys have a new project with a package that you can bring in. You double click this to bring it in, but I'll show you that in the next video and show you how to kind of get rocking and put this into the game.